love our trees here in the Pacific Northwest, but they could present different challenges to your home. General Tree Service came out to take a look at my trees and showed me a few surprises that I wasn't even aware of. Hey guys, we've got Kyle from General Tree Service over at my house today, man. Thanks for coming out. I got a bunch of trees.
Yeah, I can see a lot of Douglas firs, a lot of native species, some big leaf maples. Appreciate you having me out today.
Man, I've got some concerns. I got a lot of different things going on here, so of course I got to lean on the experts to come take a peek at it.
Absolutely. I think fall is a very good time of year to have an annual inspection, have your arborist out. We're going into a season in the Pacific Northwest where we have lots of loading events, wind, snow, ice, that sometimes can cause failure in trees. So it's important to have a professional come out and try to identify any type of potential defects that can cause failures.
Cool, and these things are big enough. I don't want any failures, man.
Certainly. Yeah, let's get started.
Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Like this one here is one of my concerns because of course it's pushing up my entire driveway.
Absolutely.
And I see conchs on the side of it.
Yeah, when we assess trees for risk, the main thing we do is we look at the target area. Worst case scenario, if there's a failure, which way is the tree going to fail? And if they're a target, is it going to strike the target? And what are going to be the consequences of failure? In this case, it is probably around 130, 140 foot tall tree. Your house is about 30 to 40 feet away, so I'd say that's a pretty significant target. So this is a perfect example of a tree to do a risk assessment on. This is a very common decay organism fruiting body. We call it Porodaidalea pini. They used to call it Phalaenus pini, and it can cause strength loss in trees, but it does take a lot of time. It's a very slow-moving decay organism, and it usually makes its way through small pruning cuts or small kind of branch breaklets in the fall when it's sporating. If it does concern me, rather than condemn the tree, I would probably recommend an advanced treatment like resistance drilling. And what that does is we can get a climber in there, he can drill it with a resistograph, and we could kind of assess the wood density. And from there, we'll have more information, we can make an informed decision.
Now I noticed on my driveway, I got lots of destruction there from, them paving three sides of this tree, which obviously back in the 70s when they built this house wasn't a good plan, but we're stuck with it.
Life will find a way, right? If you look, roots are going to follow oxygen and moisture. They're going to follow, porous soil. And if you look here, it is grown under the pavement and kind of like lifted up the driveway. Can cause, garages having a hard time closing, vehicles not being able to pull in. If these are close to foundations, especially slab on grade type foundations where the perimeter foundation is not deep, roots can actually get under and lift it up. So if you have a certified arborist who's experienced in development, we can look at roots and make informed decisions on how to kind of protect infrastructure or protect, driveways or prevent them from cracking. And, our things like, specific root removal, we can shave roots, we can put root barriers. There's all sorts of things. What you don't want to do is just bring an excavator in and take them all out at the same time, because that can compromise a tree's health or its anchorage and stability.
That makes sense. Should we go take a look at some other ones?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, so I got this maple that's seen better days.
Yeah, I can agree. So when I look at this, I try to take several things into account. As a trained arborist, I'm going to look at the base of the tree, or the root crown first. And what I can see here is it's going into the ground almost like a telephone pole. We don't see a taper where transition zone, where the trunks transition to roots. Now, if you look around and see some of the other trees that have grown from seed, you'll see that they grow on top of the soil and then the roots grow down so that the root flare is on top of the soil. So this is important to know because it tells me something. It says at some point the grade or topography was changed, whether it was through development, soil moving, any number of things. And I think it's very important to note that roots are designed to move moisture. Trunks are not designed to move moisture, so a lot of times it could stress trees out. And looking at this, I could see some bleeding canker, which can be any number of things. And then I can also see some decay in the main stem here, which tells me that a root has decayed. It has not successfully compartmentalized that decay, and the decay has started to make its way into the main stem. We could do one of two things. We could excavate around the tree, and that's similar to resistance drilling. It's just going to give us more information. We're going to say, okay, what's the extent of the decay? How many roots have we lost? Is the tree structurally stable? And that'll help us make decisions. Is this tree worth investing in? Should we remove this dead wood and try to make it healthy? Or do we say, hey, look, given everything that we're dealing with, dead crown, some decay in the bottom, do we just call this a loss and then apply for a permit with our local municipality?
Exactly. I think this one was probably regraded when they did the carport edition way before my time in the 80s, and it seems like it's had a problem since then.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to hire arborists before development happens if you're trying to protect trees, because they're experienced at working with contractors and saying, look, we can build what you're trying to build and protect the trees together.
All right, so this is my biggest tree.
Yeah. I love this Douglas fir, not just because it's a big, beautiful Douglas fir, but it also tells a story. If you look at this one, it has a bit of a sweep to it.
Yeah.
And you do that in combination with the fact that it's bigger than trees surrounding it, tells me that this tree used to be part of an older stand.
Okay.
And so at some point it had to grow to phototropically to find sunlight.
Got it.
And so that's why I'm in love with this tree. It just has a beautiful form. And a lot of people get nervous when it does that sweep, but as arborists, one of the things we look at, does it correct itself apically? And if it does that, it does form enough reaction wood holding wood around there to support that lean. It's when we see trees that grow at an angle and they don't correct, that's when we know there's a lot of leverage being put on the tension side of the roots and can increase the likelihood of failure. That being said, there's things we could do to maintain the health. When I look up at the crown of this tree, I could see that it has a nice conical form. It has some overextended limbs, and those are the ones we tend to focus on when we prune trees. So what we do now is we tend to reduce overextended limbs that have more leverage and grow outside the normal shape of the crown and are more exposed to high wind shears and loading events.
Makes sense.
So in a sense, we're just trying to replicate that conical form that trees naturally have when they grow in stands.
Those ones that are standing out there long, that are thin, leverage is going to do its thing.
Exactly. And so we do that. We take out dead limbs that have the opportunity to fail, and I'd say that's pretty much all you need to do.
Kyle, thanks for coming out, man. Obviously got some work to do on these trees.
Yeah, thanks for having me out. I'm glad we had the opportunity to walk through your landscape and address some of these issues. I'll provide you an estimate to have some tree climbers out and do some of this work.
Cool.
And then we'll put it on the schedule to do the same thing next year.
Man, that's good, because I want to make sure these things are healthy and they're not any kind of a hazard for me as well.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for coming out. How do people find more about you guys?
Yeah, please look us up at www.generaltree.com. It has all our information on the website, and you can make an appointment right there on the website.
All right, man, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
All right, guys, he can help you find out how good are your trees.